For me and my family, surfing's always been about connection. It's what we get to do for fun, and it's what I get to do for a job. In this episode, we're gonna learn about nose riding. We're gonna learn how to stand on the nose, hang 5 and 10, and really learn how to read the wave to maximize your nose riding ability. It's what separates longboarding from every other type of wave riding, and it's one of the funnest things you can do. All right, so you wanna talk nose riding? You gotta go back to where it started. You gotta go back to 1964 and 1965. Guys like David Nuuhiwa, Carson at Malibu. That's the epitome of what nose riding was, and really what nose riding still is today. I think David really set the bar in like 1964 and 65 with his David Nuuhiwa nose rider model, that he was able to throw like an effortless style, start doing soul arches and lock in nose rides that were longer than anybody had seen. That really set him apart, and it's what sets apart longboarding from shortboarding or all different other type of boards, is the fact that we can ride the nose. That's the staple of what longboarding is, it's nose riding. So it's a key thing that you really got to figure out on your longboards, whether it's a performance longboard or a nose rider or something in between. Your ability to ride the nose allows you to use different sections better, especially when the waves are smaller. Like, you can nose ride through sections where you'd otherwise just have to stand and trim. So it adds a different variety. It also allows you to connect nose to tail of the board, and you can use that nose ride to gain speed through sections and then come back to the trim point, hit the turn, trim point again, nose ride. It just creates that flow, which we'll talk about in a later episode. All right, so how do you nose ride? Let's break it down. The first thing you've got to learn is how to set up a nose ride. Where's your positioning on the wave? What you want to keep in mind is the only way that you can ride the nose is if the braking part of the wave is braking on the tail. That creates like a seesaw where someone's sitting on the other side and it'll lift you up. You need that pressure from the wave on your tail in order to stand on the nose and get lift. If you're too wide on the nose, your board's gonna run out flat, you're gonna nosedive. If you're too deep in the section, the whitewash is gonna be breaking on your knees and your legs, and it's gonna stop you and you're gonna fall. So it's a fine balance of, basically you want the wave breaking over the entire back half of your board, and you wanna be standing up on the front with the curl breaking just behind your knees. That's the key spot for nose lift, and that's the best spot on the wave to nose ride. Okay, so how do you get to the nose, right? You're gonna use that cross stepping that we learned about earlier in the episodes, and you're gonna make sure you want that nice, smooth cadence to your steps, nice balance in the spacing of your steps, and just keep even pressure the whole way to the nose. If you get to a spot where you're a little bit stuck lengthwise, you can stretch if you need to, but that's really not preferred. What you wanna do is you wanna stretch and then bring your back foot forward. That'll create a little bit more nose lift, look a little bit more stylish, but it's generally an even pace, right? If you're on a 9-foot-plus surfboard, 2 steps to the nose, 2 full steps to the nose makes all the difference. So you're basically going 1, 2, and you're on the nose, and that's it, you're hanging 5. When you wanna sort of progress to a hang 10, you just pull your back foot forward, and that's it. That's literally hanging 10. That's how you go from 5 to 10 and back again. When you drop back out of a 10, you go back to the 5 position first, let your board track out, and then continue stepping back. And then you move back to the midpoint, your trim point of the board, before you take one more step back to your steering wheel, your turning point, the back of the board. So what you need to understand about that is you're really letting the wave do the work. You're not doing that much. You're keeping a really relaxed body posture, because that constant stable pressure pushing through to your board keeps the board's trim going. You maintain that trim contact. And if you get tense and you go like this and your body, your shoulders lift and everything, you're losing your absorption in your knees. Think about shocks in a car. When you go over a speed bump, those shocks can absorb. If your shocks are blown out, you're gonna feel that. You're gonna feel that hit and it's gonna suck. So you need to use your knees as shock absorbers. You need to be relaxed body posture and just let your weight sink into the board. It sounds sort of counterproductive in your brain because more pressure on the nose is gonna make you sink. If you're in the right spot of the wave, it doesn't. You're still gonna get the lift, and being relaxed on the nose adds that little style element, and that's a key part of longboarding. Look, when it comes to rail pressure, which we talked about in an earlier episode, the same thing applies with nose riding. You want that inside rail pressure the whole time on the nose, and even when you're on the nose, you wanna kind of push your knees into the wave face a little bit. That creates that inside sort of grip so that you can drive on your knees and create that momentum going down the line. If your weight starts going towards your heels, you're gonna fall over, man, and you're gonna catch that outside edge, and you're done, it's toast. So you need to be kind of leaning into the wave a little bit, pushing your knees into that wave face and letting it grip and drive, and you'll feel that lift. When you're coming back, you still want that rail pressure on the inside. That's gonna keep you from catching your outside edge. Common flaw that I see a lot of people do is when they start to walk back, they start to put their weight on their heels, throws you off balance, you'll catch your outside edge and you fall. So as you're walking back, maintain the inside rail pressure until you get to the point where you're far enough out on the wave that you need to hit your turn from your tail. At that point, that's when you shift from that inside rail pressure back to your heels to open up and do your turn. And we'll talk about that in the next episode. So when you go back to the 60s and David Nuuhiwa and the boards that they were riding back then, super flat, really straight outlines, not much rocker. Same sort of thing goes on in modern day nose riders. This is sort of an in-between board, so it's not quite the right example, but the design elements that are in this are super easy to see. Look at that nose concave. That's very much like, even the sand sticking to it is just gone right around and sort of drawn an outline around that concave nose for you. That's straight off of a David Nuuhiwa 1965 nose rider. Right here in a modern day board, modern day tech, lightweight, but it still does the same functions, which I think is what we're looking at with modern day longboards. You're wanting to incorporate the past into the present and build it in modern construction so that you have all the advantages of the flex, of the feel under your feet, but it's still doing the same thing. It's still allowing you to ride the nose better and get more lift in your surfing. All right, so look, we're talking about that sort of teardrop concave and the design that influences nose riding. Let's jump on, let's call Dan. Dan's the master behind the shapes. He knows all about the design aspects, and he can tell you what he looks for in a nose rider and what he's gonna put into the boards. When I say, hey Dan, I need something that's gonna lock in on the nose, then he'll take it from there. When you're looking at a board that you wanna have designed for nose riding, what are those key aspects that you're gonna incorporate into the shape that's gonna help it nose ride?
The main design features that are going to help a longboard nose ride best are going to be the nose concave, the way the rocker's distributed, and especially what we worked on a lot was the tail rocker and the last little 6 to 8 inches flip. Fin position is also really key, the type of fin. But yeah, what I spent most of my, I was kind of myopic with thinking about the nose rocker and the nose concave, and then with you working on the tail rocker and to have that accentuate or help your longboarding, to help your nose riding was really exciting and cool thing to think about the whole board and how you can utilize all the different parts to help your nose riding. And then we started adding that little step in the back of the tail to lock it in and act as a depression, tongue depressor, so that the lip of the wave or the whitewash of the wave would actually be pushing down on the tail even more, giving it more of a inverted umbrella effect. So it was pretty cool. Those are the main things for the board and nose riding.
Yeah, perfect. Anything that you do with rails differently than, like, say, a high performance board or a nose rider, would you tweak the rail profile?
Yeah, so that was that 50-50, and even like really bringing the bottom rail up. You're kind of just trying to, the same thing that I was trying to describe with the tail flip, the tail rocker matching the curve of the wave and therefore locking the tail of the board into the lip. The same thing can be said with the rail. So when you're trimming and gliding up onto the sloped curve of a wave and going down the line, if the rail has a curve that comes from the bottom up to the apex of the rail, that acts as a lock too, and can create a little more hold. And then if you get the top part and everything distributed correctly with the volume, then it won't pop the rail out of the wave as much. It'll actually just kind of let the whole rail be a part of the glide of and not be something that's fighting the surfer.
All right, so one of the other factors that come into the conversation when we talk about nose riding is the wave. What is the wave going to allow you to do? Remember, the wave always dictates your maneuvers. So you've got to read the wave first and then approach the section, whether that's for a turn or for the nose. Great nose riding waves are waves like Malibu, San Onofre, Nuuhiwa, anything like that that has a predictable running face to it. Something where you have the time to read the wave face, line it up, set it and go. When you're surfing a beach break, like what we've got here in Oceanside today, it's pretty walled out. You're gonna predominantly be sitting on the tail. It's not really a nose rider friendly wave. So make sure that you're picking the right boards for what you wanna do. If you wanna learn how to nose ride, pick more of a nose rider like a singleton or a hull rider, even a special T, something that has that flatter rocker and wider outline. That's gonna make it easier to nose ride. Also, go find a wave that suits it better. Choose a small day on a beach break or choose a running point break. Make the effort, go to somewhere that's gonna dictate that nose riding's a better option for that day, pick the right board, and I guarantee it'll make your surfs way more fun. So one of the coolest things about nose riding is the fact that when you get it locked in the pocket, it'll actually go at the pace of the wave. So when you get the right amount of tail pressure in there and you're in the perfect spot of the pocket on the nose, you will run at the pace of the wave. And as you start to go out of the pocket, your board will continue to accelerate, and that's how you use your speed of nose riding to connect the dots and create the flow. All right, so now we've learned how to nose ride. We've incorporated cross-stepping, which we learned in an earlier episode. That allows us to get up to the nose, and now we know how to get up to the nose and stand on the nose and nose ride. So remember, keep that body posture nice and relaxed. Use a nice even cadence when you walk to and from the nose. Keep that inside rail pressure. And remember, positioning is everything. Make sure you're in the pocket. That's the biggest thing that's gonna help expedite your growth in nose riding. Go out there and have fun with it. Play around, experiment, try to get deeper in the pocket. Try to get that lifting feeling. Once you get that, it's gonna expedite your growth so fast. And in the next episode, we're gonna learn how to use our cross steps again to get from the nose to the tail and start doing some turns.